Hi, everybody. This is Jen of Wrenreflections, and a warm, fantastic welcome to my listeners to another episode of my podcast, Wrenreflections. I am honored and excited to be here and to share with you once more. My podcast has a different twist to it today. My topic is questions for my sister. Yes, you guessed it right. My sister will be my honored guest, and we will be discussing her. Who is she? What are her thoughts on life? And be asking fun, random questions as well. So, without further ado, welcome to you, Jackie, my sister.
Thank you, my sister Jenny.
Jackie is, my sister, and she's just full of life and has had many interesting journeys and experiences. That would definitely become a bestseller book if she finally decides to write one. Trust me, it would be. So we look forward to it in the future, right, Jackie?
Yes, and you did forget to mention that I'm your elder sister.
Oh, my humblest apologies. Yes, listener, she
Yeah.
is my elder sister, my older sister, my one and only sister, as a matter of fact. And yes, she makes me know it. Okay? So, Jackie?
That's right. That's what big
Oh,
sisters do.
absolutely, absolutely. Jackie, first things first, tell us, who are you? I mean, I've known you all my life, so I pretty much know who you are, um, to a greater extent, but who are you? Who are you really? In other words, what drives you or what makes you tick? So please let the listeners know, who is Jackie Clark?
Okay, thank you very much. I don't really think about who I am much. I'm just me. I'm Jackie Clark. I'm 60. I'm happy to say I was 60 this year. I'm a very happy 60-year-old. Um, I've had a lot of experiences in life. I started life professionally as a teacher. And then I continued as a teacher for some time, a teacher librarian, I should say, because information and teaching is really my passion.
Mm.
And I've progressed through life. I was born in England. My parents returned to Jamaica when I was 8. I lived in Jamaica for a very long time, all of my formative years, I should say. I returned to live in England in my mid 30s.
Yeah.
And I've lived here, mostly since then. I've traveled quite a lot because traveling is my passion as
Oh, yeah.
well. And I've worked in a number of industries. I worked in marketing. I've worked in as a librarian, separately from being a teacher librarian, just a specialist consultant, information specialist. And I've moved along with the trends.
Yeah.
So I moved from just being library to actually an e-learning specialist. And now I am actually a sector skills e-learning manager in the civil service. And in between that, I've done loads of things. I've lived in Africa, I've lived in the Middle East. I currently live in London. I've lived in Jamaica. I've lived in, I've traveled a
Oh, yeah.
lot, and it's been very enjoyable.
I
So
see
more
that.
or
Yeah.
less, that's what it is. That's
Oh,
me.
absolutely.
And no, I should add that my greatest passion in life, though, is to help others. That's my greatest passion. I really like to see people make progress. I like to help where I can. I'm very community focused.
Mm.
I work along in with the diaspora within the UK. I've worked in areas just to make sure that people get the information that they need, because that is really my greatest passion. Because the lack of information for me, I think that is the greatest thing that holds us back as a people. So
Understood.
yeah, my main thing, and when I say information, I mean relevant information. I don't mean people's business.
Understood. And
Yeah.
and also if we realize pretty much all your jobs have surrounded information and communication, and I know that's something that you really like and that you're very good at as well. So yes, we can understand why, that would be your area of, specialty and also helping people. So you touched on a part that I was gonna, would have been my next question, which is you just reached a milestone this year, earlier this year, that you turned 60. And, I think it's a huge privilege for anyone to live to that age and be, very active and very just about their business. It's a good thing. And so the question is, if you had a chance to speak to your 30-year-old self, what advice would you give her or just say to her? If you had a chance now at
Well,
60 to speak to your 30-year-old self.
to be very honest, to my 30-year-old
Yeah.
self, I would say probably, um, you know, help people, but don't possibly focus more on um, building yourself.
Uh-huh.
So help people, but also build yourself. Because I think in my 30s, my 30-year-old self,
Hmm.
I lived in Jamaica, and I was a teacher at that time. And I think I put so much effort into my students. I just really wanted to see them do
Mm.
well. So I was so focused on my students that I didn't go and study further. I didn't go and do my degree yet because
Mm.
I just wanted to see my students doing well because I was in the first batch of diploma teachers in
Mm.
Jamaica. So I still had a teacher's diploma. So I think one of the things I would have said to my 30-year-old self was study.
Um,
Go and go and upgrade your studies. Um, and think more of yourself than others at that
yeah.
point. And then when you have built yourself to a point, then you can pour more out.
Ah, very, very good advice that would be. And, for any listener out there, that's something that they can also take away from it. Focus more on yourself at that point in your life. Fully understood and agree. Um, I know you have also both visited and lived in several countries, as you mentioned in your introduction. But tell me, what stands out as the most interesting place you've ever been, whether you've lived there or not? What stands out as the most interesting place you've ever been?
Hmm. That's a very that's quite an interesting question.
Mm,
Because having lived, for instance, in Gambia, where it was quite backward in relation to where, say, Jamaica
yeah.
is. Um, it was interesting. But then when I lived in Qatar, which was at that time considered to be the richest country in the world when I lived there, so the quality of life there was very interesting.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think. I can't, to be honest with you, I can't think of somewhere that I've been that really stood out.
Ah,
As a matter of fact, the place that I went to that I said, I would live here. And it's very, at the time when I went there, I had that thought and it was in Atlanta, Georgia. But that was
mm.
many years
Yeah.
ago. And I have since thought to myself that America is not really somewhere that I'd like to live.
Okay.
But Atlanta in Georgia stood out for
Yeah.
me at the time that I went there, which was many years ago, probably over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It stood out for me. But yeah, there are some really nice places, but I can't say that anything has said, oh, you know what, let me give up my life and just come and chill.
Okay.
Um, it's I really can't say that I've really come across somewhere that has spoken to me like that.
Okay.
I just still think that Jamaica is still the greatest place, despite
Yeah.
everything. I still think that Jamaica is the greatest place to live.
Jamaica is beautiful, with the
Yes,
different things happening, but it's still a beautiful place. And I agree, Atlanta is also quite an interesting place. I think, the different, yes, historical sites there and just different stuff. So yes, I do agree with that. But Jamaica, 100% with you on that one.
yes, definitely.
Yes. So, cake or ice cream? What's your preference?
Oh, that's very difficult. Because I'm not, to be honest with you, I don't like cakes. I like tarts.
Um,
I like tarts with fillings,
yes.
and ice cream. Oof. To be honest with you, back in the days, I really used to love ice cream. Now I find that ice cream is not really um, a friend
Loving
of
you?
mine, but
Mm-hmm.
I do only, to be honest with you, only eat plant-based ice cream.
Mm.
Because I don't, I have a dairy intolerance, so I only eat plant-based. So if it's just cake, I would say it's going to be ice cream because I'm not a cake person. I like tarts with fillings.
Okay. Okay. So ice cream would get the edge in under that kind of
Yes,
scenario. Plant-based ice
plant-based ice
cream.
cream.
Okay.
Plant-based ice
Thank you
cream.
for the
Yeah.
emphasis on the plant-based.
Yes.
So, seeing that we're on the topic of food, then, let's say you were hosting a dinner party, right, with six famous persons as guests, or they don't have to necessarily be all famous, to be quite honest. By the way, these guests should all be persons who are no longer with us. Um,
Okay.
but if you have a chance, of course, obviously when they were alive, to invite them to a dinner party, who would they be? And in a nutshell, sorry, why would you choose them? In a nutshell, just say who they would be and why you would choose them to be at this dinner party.
Well, to be honest, when on the line of famous people, to be very honest, my number one famous person would be Winnie Mandela. Because I really love Winnie Mandela. I like her strength.
Mm.
I like her ability to have stood and to have kept her husband Nelson's name in the public eye for over all those years
Mhm.
and to keep the fight and the fire alive. So Winnie Mandela would definitely be at my
Yeah.
table. Um, the other person, and I'm just trying to think of famous people that I would really like to have at my table. Um, I think probably Michael Manley,
Okay.
former prime minister.
Hmm.
I would definitely like to have had him at my
Yeah.
table because I strongly believe in democratic socialism.
Okay.
So, and apart from that,
Yeah.
just his persona, I admired him and the things that he did for Jamaica. As a prime minister, the policies and things that he brought in, I would definitely like to have Michael Manley at my table.
Okay.
Um, I can't, to be quite honest, I'm just trying to think. I'd like to have Martin Luther King
Okay.
at
Yeah.
my dinner
Yeah.
table. I would like to have Marcus Garvey at my
Um,
dinner table.
mm,
Because these are all people who
who speak to
stood
you?
up for what they
Mm-hmm.
believed in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yes, I would definitely like to have them at my dinner table. I'm just trying to think of somebody else that I would like because to be honest with you, if I were to be quite
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
honest, I would say that I would like to have had Muammar Gaddafi
Ah,
at dinner table
all interesting
simply
points.
because and you said six, so I think the other one would have been Fidel Castro.
Ah,
And it's just because
that could be a conversation and a
these are
half then.
people. Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's the people who have stood up and fought
Yes.
4 all right. So I'd have more than 6 because I'd have to have Rosa Parks there as well. You
Yeah,
understand?
definitely.
But I mean, when I think of Gaddafi, the reason I would like to have him there is because of the amount of investment that he put into African Union in order to support the African nations. The African Union. When he was the leader, he put a lot of effort into educating Africans from poor countries. So I'd like to have him there. Fidel
Okay.
Castro, I'd like to have him there because, again, I know I'm beginning to sound like I'm a
Oh,
revolutionary. I know that.
yes.
Um, but yeah, I believe in the way in which he ensured that there were no illiterate people in Cuba.
Okay.
And the policy which he put in. I mean, I don't agree with everything,
Yeah.
but I like his policy of self-reliance. I like the policy where children were identified for their skills early and kind of directed towards what seemed to be their skills as youngsters. So those are the things that really
Speak to
stand
you.
out for
Okay.
me, and those are the people that I would, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that would definitely be an interesting dinner party. The conversations would be, I'm sure, off the chart, as they would say.
That's right. Because like for Marcus Garvey, for instance, I believed in his philosophy.
Yeah.
You understand me? And if you notice that Marcus Garvey is not as respected in
Yeah.
Jamaica as he is respected
Overseas.
around the
That's
world.
true.
There is no book that you can read about great black men of
That is
color,
not
and
mentioned.
Marcus Garvey is not
That's true.
included in that. But when I went to Africa, every African country I've been to, they have something recognizing some sort of
Yeah.
monument or some sort of museum or a section in a museum highlighting and recognizing Marcus Garvey. And even in the United States, they recognize Marcus Garvey much more than they do,
Mm.
more than the respect that he gets in Jamaica. So yes, those would be my dinner table guests.
Okay. Thank you. Interesting. So, you mentioned even books earlier. So let me ask you, what's the last book you read that stirred your soul?
Well, the last book, and to be honest, I don't even get to read as much as I used to, or as much as I like to. But the last book that I've read is a book. It's written by an author here in England. His name is Tony
Yeah.
Fairweather, and the book is called 28 pounds and 10 shillings.
Interesting title.
Yes, and it's funny because the title of it is the cost of a ticket to have traveled on the Windrush to England.
Ah,
All right,
okay.
so that was the cost of the ticket, 28 pounds and 10 shillings. And it details the preparation of people and the getting onto the Windrush and the whole journey and all the things that happened on the Windrush. So it's a historical fiction. So it is set at the time of the Windrush and the different people. So it clearly outlines different characters who were on board the Windrush, and those who, some of them, how they got on, some of them, because there were people who were stowaways who got who were on the Windrush. There are people who came from more affluent backgrounds. There were people who their parents had to borrow money to send them on the Windrush, and the different stops it made in the Caribbean on its way to England,
Okay.
all the things that happened, the relationships that took place, the gambling,
Understood.
all the activities that took place on the
Yeah.
Windrush, and through to the time of arriving in England, where they had to, there was somebody from one newspaper, I think it was the Daily Express, who was on board interviewing people.
Yeah.
On up to the time when it arrived, and they had to divert it from the port because
Mm-hmm.
all the people were there waiting to abuse the black people who were getting off.
Okay.
So that's why it was they're diverted to Tilbury,
Yeah.
so that people couldn't go out there to go and abuse the people because they didn't know it was being diverted. To the time of them getting off, and the time of them meeting whoever they came to meet and going.
Understood. Mm.
Yeah, so it's a very soul stirring book because, as you know, last year was the 75th anniversary of the arrival of the Empire Windrush in England. So yeah, that's the last book I've read,
Okay.
and it was a very gripping saga. Um, it took me a few days to
I
read
can
it,
imagine.
even though it's quite a book. But yeah, it was really gripping. I just wanted to know what was going to happen next.
Okay, understood. I can imagine it must have been.
Yeah.
Yes, I can imagine, and that it really, impacted you in one form or the other. Um,
Yes, well,
mm,
in light of the fact that my parents were part of they weren't on the Windrush, but they were of that. They came to England at around that time.
mm,
So had I grown up here, I would have been what is classified. Well, I'm still because I'm in that age group,
mhm.
a part of the Windrush generation, as we are called.
Understood, understood. So tell me, um, you have a daughter who is my niece, of course. In what
Yes.
way would you say that she's like you? And what has she taught you about life and love? In what way?
Well, I'll be really
Mhm.
honest. To be very honest, I wouldn't say that my daughter is like me, strange enough, where I am talkative and out and about. She's quiet and likes to get on with life quietly.
Yes.
Um, and what she's taught me about life is that, sometimes you have to put others before yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When you become a parent, I think so.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You have to put others before your child
Mm-hmm.
ultimately comes
Yeah.
first. So even if you have plans to do something
Yes.
else, you kind of, yeah,
Well, I know.
support your
Yes,
children.
yes,
Yes.
understood. I know she sounds like you more and more each day, for sure though. But hey,
I don't know. It's funny because I don't notice it, but then
you
you say
wouldn't.
that and other
Yes,
people say that, but I don't notice it.
yes, it does. It does happen. Yeah.
And she does look like me,
Yeah.
except that I'm a bit more fluffy.
Ah, I hear you loud and clear. My
Yes.
next question is, do you believe in the saying love conquers all?
No.
No, I don't.
I don't believe in the saying that love conquers all because there are some things that love cannot conquer.
Yeah.
Because there are elements of, say, relationships, that no matter love, if you're going to use love to conquer some of the things, you are going to end up very hurt
Mm-hmm.
because you may have that volume of love that you are looking to conquer all,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the other person, no matter what you do, they are not improving.
Mm-hmm.
So then they won't be conquered.
Mm-hmm.
So you are putting all that into it, whereas the other person isn't putting it in. And yes, as they say, love covers a multitude of sins, but it doesn't conquer all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my question is, have you ever been in love?
Um, possibly,
Interesting one.
possibly in the far, in the far distance, in the far,
Far
in
away
the
from
long
you?
ago.
Ah,
In the long ago, yeah, because I think that love means different things to different
yes.
people. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that as a young person, I read loads of Mills and Boons and
Mm-hmm.
Grace Livingston Hill and all these books that their version of love
Mm-hmm.
is not necessarily what love is. So I think I think some of those romance novels are quite misguiding,
Mm-hmm.
because what they tell you love is when you find yourself there,
What it really is.
that's not what love really
Entail or
is,
entails.
and
Mm-hmm.
because you see, I like, for instance, I would say that I have loved probably two people in my whole life truly love, because some people you love, but the love is different with different
People.
people
Hmm.
based on the stage that you are in
Absolutely.
life. um yeah, because it's the different, because love is something that grows. If you're in a relationship and the love is not growing, then I don't know that that was even real love. You
Absolutely.
understand? So sometimes you care about people more than you love them. So yeah, that's a very tricky one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
And part two to that question is it an experience you would relish having again or experiencing again?
I guess probably, because if I were to experience love at my age, it would be a very different love. It wouldn't be those kind of young love where you get lost, where you're in
Yeah.
love, because somebody told me that you must not fall in love, you must stand up in love.
Yeah. Yes. And
So
yeah.
I guess when I was young, I fell in love. Whereas now, if I were to be involved in love in any way, it would be standing up in love, and it would be more of a caring, supportive,
Hmm.
companionship type of
About it.
love than anything
Yes.
else.
Age and
Yes,
experience, will cause
yes,
us
it's
to have
different.
that kind
Yes,
of perspective. And yes,
yes.
I do agree with that. Over the years, as is common with siblings right around, it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, but so we're not unique where that is concerned. We've had our fair share of disagreements and arguments, but through it all,
Yes.
our family and sisterly bond has pretty much stood firm. My question is, what life lesson have you taken away from it all? What's one thing that you've taken away from that aspect? The arguments or differences that can come with being a sibling.
I would say that what I have taken from it is that you have to bear in mind that everybody is
Mm-hmm.
different. And the how you are is not necessarily how your sibling is going to be.
Yep.
And you have to learn that, because sometimes it's not easy to grasp that. When people move through life, they change as they go
Yeah.
through, and they become different, and they have different outlooks from
Mm-hmm.
yourself. So I think that's been the lesson that I've taken, that you just have to respect other people's
You,
views and
yeah,
their what they,
and who they are.
even if you think they might be
Mm-hmm.
stubborn,
Mm-hmm.
or they might also see me as stubborn
Yeah,
too. But you just have to let
the
people
people,
have their own opinion.
yes, and let people
Yeah.
be who they are, and we learn
Yes,
to
and
accept
agree to
and
disagree.
absolutely, absolutely. And I'm gonna have one more question, and we definitely will have to break and have a part two because the topics and the answers have been very interesting. So
Okay.
we're gonna have one
Okay.
more question and then definitely a part two. And the last question is, you know, pretty much we all reminisce about the good old days. I'm at that point in my life now that I'm reminiscing about the good old days, believe it or not. And for me,
Okay.
one of the things that I miss most is the simplicity of childhood. So, what is it that you miss most about childhood, or what is your most memorable thing about childhood, being a child for you?
I think one of the things that I miss is when I was a child, we had so many cousins and uncles and aunts, and we had really good family gatherings. And so that's the main thing that I miss, as you say, the simplicity of life.
Yeah.
Things were just ordinary. Now everything is
Complicated.
Everything is more
Yeah.
no, everything is more
Yes.
competitive,
Yes.
so people are trying to outdo each other. When I was a child, I mean, people, probably the adults were trying to do that, I don't
Yeah.
know, but when I was, it was community meant a lot more.
Absolutely.
Community and family.
Mm-hmm.
So community meant a lot more, and crime wasn't anything like it is
Yeah.
now. So one of the things I miss from childhood is just community, big family,
Right.
lots
Yeah.
of cousins, and community. The way in which community worked.
Yes. Yes. I
Yeah,
absolutely,
that's what I really miss.
absolutely. And we wish as adults, we don't know how feasible that is going to be, but so many times we say we wish we could go back to the good old days. And as we get older, it's something we emphasize more. But let's see what happens. As one last question before we break for the second part next week. What's your favorite thing to cook?
Okay. Fish,
Ah, I knew you were going to say
fish.
that. I knew you were going to
I
say
love,
that.
I absolutely love fish.
And in any particular style or form, do you prefer? You have one preference? I mean, do you,
I like my fish escov. I like to do escovitch fish, but for me, I have to stuff my fish. Like some people just season fish. I like my seasoning stuffed in the fish and slice it up and put the seasoning in the little
ah,
in the little slips that you put in
as a
there, and
Jamaican love.
yeah, I love fish. Yes,
Ah, thank you so
yeah.
much. Wow. We definitely will have to have a part two. It has been very entertaining, very fun, and very inspiring episode. And, I'm honored, sis, that you didn't hesitate to say yes to my invitation. And I am very grateful. So I say thank you. And
You're very welcome. Yeah, you're very welcome.
yes,
It's been a pleasure being on here.
yes. And will you
Yes,
be
and I
back
look
for
forward
next
to
week?
part two.
Ah, thank you so much. So,
Okay.
as I close, here's an affirmation to you for your reflection. And it goes, I am grateful for the love and support of my sister. Sisterly love is a bond that cannot be broken. And I celebrate the unbreakable ties that bind us together. Together we rise, together we shine. I celebrate the power of your strength, your resilience, and I'm proud to be a part of this community and family that uplifts and empowers. And I'm grateful for your love and support. My sister and I may be different, but our love and connection are the same. I celebrate the unique qualities and strengths that make you my sister. So special. In closing, I say until next
Oh,
time. Sorry, you were saying?
I was saying thank you, thank
You're
you.
most welcome, my dear. Until next time, to my listeners, this is Jen of Wrenreflections saying, always, always remember to be good to yourself. And please feel free to be in touch with me via Twitter or X, Jen at Wrenreflections on Facebook and YouTube, Wrenreflections, or my email, wrenreflections@gmail.com. Until next time, bye bye. So, bye, my guest host. Good to have you.
Okay, bye, Sister Jen.
Bye bye.
Bye.